Welcome to Tips, the Townsend Institute podcast series, a show produced by the Townsend Institute at Concordia University, Irvine. This podcast shares stories of leadership, coaching, and counseling experiences that have shaped the lives and careers of our guests, who then provide tips aimed toward helping listeners grow in both their personal and professional lives. I'm Dr. John Townsend, psychologist, organizational consultant, and author of over 30 books, including the New York Times best-selling Boundaries series. I'm also the founder of the Townsend Institute, and I'm excited to introduce your podcast hosts, Dr. Ashlie Andrew and Dr. Gilbert Fugit.
Welcome back, everyone, to a truly meaningful and insightful episode of the Townsend Institute podcast series. This week marks National Infertility Awareness Week, and thanks to the help of our Institute friends, Doug and Jesse Brown, we're shedding light on this difficult topic and highlighting the incredible work the Browns are doing to connect with and build resilience in the infertility community.
That they are, Gilbert. Through their nonprofit, Uniquely Knitted, Doug and Jesse are providing mental health programming and resources for many facing infertility. With roots in our Townsend Growth Model, Doug and Jesse's work helps provide safety and community to many who have previously felt alone. Today, we learn more about their work. Even if you're not facing infertility struggles, statistics show you likely know someone who is, so all can benefit from today's insight. Let's get started.
Well, welcome back, Tips listeners. Today we are very excited and blessed to have our friends Jesse and Doug Brown with us. Welcome
Yay!
Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome to the podcast. So, can you, I know you are part of, the Townsend world, and you created this thing called Uniquely Knitted. Can you tell us a little bit about Uniquely Knitted, where it came from? What do you do? Just tell us a little bit about you for those that don't know anything.
Who are you?
Yeah,
Who are
you
guys?
Yeah. Is this a quilting club? Probably
That's
not.
exactly what people think it is.
Yeah.
People have followed us going, oh, I thought this was a knitting group, but okay.
We'll have like a merchandise, like a hat or something like that. And people at the grocery store will go, I love knitting. And we're like, oh, how do I break it to you? This is not really about that.
But it starts the conversation.
That's true. That's true. It kicks it off.
Yes, I'm Doug. This is me talking. This is Jesse.
Hello.
And we started Uniquely Knitted. Uniquely Knitted has nothing to do with knitting, although we're fine with knitting. We love that.
We accept all.
Really, the story of Uniquely Knitted and how we got involved with Townsend and all of that really goes back to our own personal story, which is that when we were in our early 20s, we had this really great, awesome, perfect vision for our life, which was, I was a pastor at the time, and we were going to have a bunch of kids really young and have like that house that people go to for like a youth group on a Wednesday night or something like that, a pool. Somehow we had a huge house in our dream in Southern California, which was probably going to be, that's probably the hardest part.
On a pastor's salary.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Hairdresser's salary. So not a lot.
But as that vision, we tried to make that vision a reality. Year over year went by and we couldn't get pregnant. So that was this like huge vision we had of we'll have a big family really became, it was in jeopardy because we just couldn't get pregnant. We thought, what's going on? Like, why is this so difficult for us? Months turned into years turned into what felt like, decades. But a couple of years in, we're after doing a ton of tests about doing a lot of treatments, all these kinds of things. We sort of landed on this idea and this thought that we might not ever be able to get pregnant. We figured out that we are both diagnosed with fertility issues, both Jesse and I. So we both don't bring a lot to the fertility table, I guess you could say, which was a whole story and a podcast in and of itself. But sort of discovering, I have fertility issues and it's going to make it really difficult to get pregnant. Jesse has fertility issues. It's going to be difficult to get pregnant. And then going through all the treatments, figuring out, okay, no, the treatments aren't going to be for us. So we'll move over and this gives us an opportunity to do adoption because we have the time, we have the resources, let's do adoption. And then doing an adoption and then having one be successful and then going through, I think, 2 failed adoptions after that, moving into foster care and figuring out, okay, well, why don't we just become foster parents and ups and downs of the foster world. and then eventually adopting a little girl through foster care. So we have 2 adopted kids, both from totally different situations. We have no biological children. At the end of all that whole thing, we thought, we really want to give back and do something about this really, and you'll see the name coming in here, this really unique situation that so many of us are sort of knitted together to be together through this really unique, weird trauma of struggling to grow your family. 1 in 6 people in the world will struggle with infertility.
Wow.
Because millions of people around the world are struggling to get pregnant right now. Many of them will have major life issues that happen. There'll be traumas that involved with it. There'll be near death experiences from like complications of fertility treatments. 1 in 4 pregnancies will end in miscarriage. There is just this really unique trauma that people experience, all just trying to get pregnant. And that was our story. And Uniquely Knitted was built out of that personal struggle. Was the name is about, this is unique. Our struggles are unique, and everyone who's gone through it is sort of knitted together because of the uniqueness of our pain and our trauma. So we started a nonprofit that provides mental health services to people struggling with infertility. That's the name in a nutshell.
Wow. I mean, just from the get-go, thank you guys so much for sharing your story with us and our listeners. Because like you mentioned, well, with the uniqueness, but you also share those statistics, it's actually not that unique in terms of the actual fertility. I think the uniqueness comes into that there's actually conversations and mental health counseling and more resources around it. Thankfully, today more than ever before, thanks to people like you and nonprofits like you that are shedding a light on it. And so, you took this, this trauma and this heartache that the 2 of you experienced, and gosh, now look what you're able to do to pour into families and communities. Talk us through a little bit. You mentioned providing mental health resources to those that are battling or have battled infertility. What does that look like? Are we seeing patients in your office? Are we going out into the communities, or perhaps a little bit of both?
Yeah, that's a great question. It started with actually a care package. That's how Uniquely Knitted started, was us just.
We had no idea what to do in the beginning.
No idea.
Just no clue.
I started with these gift baskets.
Kind of like parenting, right? You just have no idea what to do in the beginning.
That's right.
Exactly. Especially us, we got a child at 2.5 and it was like, oh, discipline.
Yeah.
What are our
just tell you a funny story about that really quick?
Yeah.
Totally an aside. So when we adopted, we met this little boy who came to live with us in 9 days. So, and he was almost 2. So he came to live with us. We have no parents,
no idea what we're doing
whatsoever. We have no idea what's going on. We're already just like massively overwhelmed by life and this whole thing happening. And then we're eating dinner. Eating Jell-O.
Chocolate Jell-O.
And he just takes the Jell-O and he just throws it on the ground after we give it to him.
Yeah.
And we look at each other and we're like, wait, parenting, what do we do again?
I think I looked at Doug and I was like, discipline. What are your thoughts? Like on the fly right now, because
at 2 years old, that's Jell-O. What they gave you a 2-year-old. Way to throw you into the lion's den.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I was just like, the getting pregnant or adopting is so hard in and of itself. Then you have like this person living with you and you're like, wait, how do I be a parent? No one really knows. Yeah. But most people have maybe a 9-month runway to maybe read a book or something.
Yeah. Think about it for a while.
So we really didn't know what we were doing in any way.
Yeah. But how it started was people would come up to me. They knew that Doug and I struggle with infertility. I was very open about it, which is more uncommon, actually. People aren't open about it, really. And Doug was a pastor at the time, like he said. He was open about it on the pulpit, stuff like that. So just people knew what we were experiencing. And so what happens is they tell no one, but they tell me. So I would be in the church lobby and people would come up to me with tears in their eyes, people that I hadn't talked to in like forever. And I'm like, what's happening? What's going on? And they were like, I'm struggling. So it started out of this idea of like, man, I'd love to give them like a gift basket or something just to tell them that I'm thinking of them. So I went to Target, I got really comfy PJs, and then I got a candle, and then I got a chocolate and wine if they drank wine or whatever it was, and just sat it at their door. And they were so touched.
Wow.
I mean, it was like I handed them $1 million. It was like, here you go. Here's $1 million. They were so touched. The thank you notes that I got Well, then we had a really good friend that was really passionate about the infertility community as well and decided to start funding these baskets. They were like, we're just going to give you the money for them. Here's a Target gift card. Go get it. Don't let that stop you. And so that kind of happened. And then that turned into like boxes that we could sell all over the United States. And then that trickled into a podcast.
Yeah, it was really like it was noticing that there was going to be so many of them. Like one turned into 2, turned into 5. Then it was like, wait, so many people struggle with infertility. Let's do something that people can sort of find online and then give out. You know, we can sell them like that. And then we sold 1,000 of them so fast, and we're like, wait, what's going on?
Yeah, we were like,
there's like this huge need.
Yeah.
And then it snowballed from there, which then actually, if I can say, we sort of stumbled onto the Townsend world. I was at that time going through TLPs and loved all of the Townsend stuff. My background is in philosophy of religion and ethics and things like that. I love what John Townsend's work in psychology and what he's sort of put together in that growth model. I was a huge fan of that. So then Jesse and I, on the back of like selling all those boxes and doing all of that, we were like, what do people need? We really should put together something that people really need and speaks directly to the heart of what they're going through, which is when we came up with using process groups as sort of a way to meet people where they're at.
Yeah, because there is support that are struggling for people that are struggling with infertility. There is support, but typically it's like, let's raise money for your IVF cycle, or let's match you with a surrogate, which is all good. There's nothing wrong with any of that. But there wasn't a lot or really anything that really talked about the mental load of infertility.
Yeah, that's the tactical, but not the relational, emotional side.
Yes. Wow. I'll never forget going to my first infertility support group before Uniquely Knitted. And it was like, we would just talk about those things like IVF. What are you doing? More like the tactical things. I'll never forget. I pulled somebody aside and I said, are you really struggling emotionally? And she was like, yes. And I was like, thank God. Like, thank you. I'm really struggling. I'm struggling with depression. I'm struggling with anxiety. I'm struggling with like existential, like what is my point of my life if I'm not going to become a mom? Like these huge things. And so that kind of, snowballed really into what Uniquely Knitted is that kind of idea of talking about the emotional side. So like our podcast is the Infertility Feelings Podcast. So we don't give any medical advice. We don't give anything like that. We just talk about what does it make you feel when it comes to infertility and money? Or what does it make you feel with infertility and your dreams, or whatever it is? And we just tie it in to emotional. And that's where we used most of the TPRAT too with that.
And so I want to dial it back one second for our listeners that aren't necessarily as knitted into our Townsend family as all of us are.
Love it. Double points for you. Double points.
Thank you very much. So Doug, you talked about TLP. So that's a Townsend leadership program, which is unlike any leadership program for those of you that aren't out there and listening, because we do dial in to the emotional intelligence and the relational pieces much more than really probably any leadership program out there. Yeah. And you also mentioned the process groups that come with that. And that might not be something some people are familiar with. So walk us through then, what does like a process group for those, working through infertility, what does that look like?
Great question. And if I can rewind just a little bit to tell you the story about how we even got to process groups.
That's great. Yes.
We wanted to do something that met people directly where they're at, right? We wanted to do something that alleviated the immediate pain of isolation, which is probably the biggest emotional, mental pain of during infertility. Is you just feel alone. You feel like no one else on earth is going through this. No one gets it. I feel alone. I feel isolated.
Everyone's getting their dream. I'm not.
Totally. My friends are sort of moving on. Everyone's sort of graduated into the mom and dad club, and we're like over here, like, what do? We're just keep going on hikes, I guess. You just feel so left behind. The hike
can only hit so many times. And then
right. Yeah.
Just feels so left behind. All of a sudden in friend groups, conversations become about like breastfeeding and babies and strollers. And if that's just not you, every one of those conversations is just like a dagger. So it's just, you start go like, I don't really want to be around that anymore. So you pull away, and that's where anxiety and depression and all those things, they just flourish. So we were like thinking, what can we do to help people immediately feel like they have community, immediately feel like they're not alone and that they can process some of this stuff. Usually the number one sort of answer, if you go to a fertility clinic or if you go to a doctor or hospital, they say, oh yeah, go see a therapist. But the therapy, which is absolutely wonderful, doesn't necessarily immediately alleviate the alone feeling. You feel like, well, I'm talking to a therapist about how I feel alone, but I still feel alone. You know, the therapist may be helping you work through some of those feelings. But the number one thing you're wondering is, am I the only one going through this? Which led us to feel like we have to put together people who are struggling. How do we do that? What does that look like? Is it just a support group? Jesse and I have been to, tons of support groups without a facilitator, without a direction. Support groups often sort of just turn into, what are you doing to get pregnant? What are you doing to get pregnant? And then it feels like we never really got down to the emotions of all of this. So it led us to a facilitated process group that has a specific growth model and a specific language for how we can connect. The most obvious tool to use to do that was all of John and Henry Cloud's work, John Townsend and Henry Cloud's, works about changes that heal. Like we remember reading that a million years ago, and maybe not a million years ago. Hopefully that's not offensive to them. Love you, John. But like all of that work, like that idea of like, how are we like really attaching to other people? Like, how are we, having boundaries of, all that kind of stuff, right? It just became this language that was such a natural jumping off point for process groups. So we built these groups around that. And our groups look like Jesse and I teaching on video our members that language. So we kind of go through some of the language that is in that Townsend relational growth model in the TPRAT, if anyone knows what that is. And it's really incredibly helpful. We use definitely like a more simple version of it. We're just kind of getting started with the language, but that language, can I live in reality? Can I get my needs met by people? Can I have a boundary with maybe my mother-in-law who keeps asking about if we're going to get pregnant? Like, can I do all that kind of stuff? And that sort of becomes the pillars that we, process around for 6 weeks. So that's what's going on in our process groups.
And one thing we also do is everyone goes around and shares their story.
Yeah.
And that is, yes, they learn and we call it build resilience. Like you build resilience through learning to live in your reality, getting your needs met, boundaries, all that stuff. But also we put 6 to 7 people in a Zoom call like this, and we just ask them to share what they've been going through. And that is the coolest part.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget this one process group that I started. Never forget it. Started the process group. One girl immediately started crying. Just immediately. And that's not the first time that's happened, but she was going, and I finally stopped the whole group and I said, can I ask you what you're feeling, what you're going through? She's like, just to see someone else's face that is going through this means so much to me. Because everyone a lot of people in infertility are living on their own island.
Oh yeah.
And it's like bringing them together, just even showing their face of like, I'm here too, I'm a real human, is so, so powerful. So they learn how to build resilience and do all that stuff, which is great in the videos. They watch that during the week, but we also have the processing part, which is like, and we try to keep it feelings based and, all that. And then we reflect back to them.
And we have really found that it really is the number one way to sort of treat the isolation of infertility. It's totally worked. We've been able to run hundreds of groups. We've had over 1,000 alumni, and it's awesome. It's awesome. It really is. We think the best place to sort of start this journey of building resilience and healing. Just like Jesse said, just joining sometimes a group and going like, oh my gosh, you too? Like, I thought I was the only one. That becomes such an immediate bond.
It's amazing how just being in community, right? Whether you're in person or because of the amazing technology we have this day and age to do that, just really gives people the breakthroughs and support they need.
And just the way it sounds like they just all kind of feel comfortable, right? They're just like, okay, all these people are in the well here with me, and they jump in. Another thing you talk about, though, in the Townsend world is the TPRAT, right? The Townsend Personal Relational Assessment tool. So
Yeah.
how do you use this in your business, your nonprofit business? How does this tool help or work, or what do you do?
Yeah.
It's funny. Can we just say that our highs and lows are exactly the opposite?
Yes. On the
So
rat.
on the T-Prat, we are exactly the opposite. His strength is my low and whatever. Like it's, so that is something with that you like, we talk about all the time, just being in our world, working together
Yeah.
of just using the T-Prat, talking about all that, using our language, pushing on each other's strengths of like, oh, that's something that you're really good at. That's something that I'm not so good at, or
Yeah.
growth or area or high or low, whatever you want to say.
I have often thought that most work is so relational, whether it's between Jesse and I and the people that we work with here at Uniquely Knitted, whether it's the groups that we're putting together, it's all so highly relational. And without language for connecting, and without understanding that there like a ways to troubleshoot our connection, things just get harder. So the more language we have for connection, the more understanding that we want to connect, the better everything gets. Like the T-Prat for us is not only is it a tool that we use to build our programming, it's sort of the way in which everyone is connecting at Uniquely Knitted. Like between Jesse and I, like we use the T-Prat and understanding like our highs and our lows and like our areas of strength, our areas of growth, out to our process group leaders, to the admins that we work with, to the people in our groups. It's sort of like the water that we're all swimming in. And then it makes growth and connection so much easier because we can sit with a group and say, let's talk about integration. Maybe we wouldn't say integration. We'll say, let's talk about accepting the good and bad of life during infertility. And everyone goes, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. And that's really hard for me. But it's this ladder that now we can climb now, because we have the concept and the language. I will say directly, we have a process group for anyone who's struggling to get pregnant. We also have a group that's sort of more interior after you've been an alumni of our 6-week groups. That is a growth group. And we actually have people take the T-Prat assessment. So they take the assessment. So they're coming into that group with a knowledge of their area of strength and their area of growth. And we, it adds another layer sort of growth to that group. That's why we call them growth groups.
Yeah.
I like that. Wow, that sounds so interesting. Okay, so to kind of flip the switch a little bit, we've heard about all the amazing work you're doing from the mental health side of Uniquely Knitted. Let's talk a little bit about the business side of starting a nonprofit. And as a
terrifying, I'd like to end the interview now. Please, let's
do it.
Let's not talk.
But say, just it's a trap.
I'm just interested for those out there who are just interested in, small business owners. We're launching our own thing.
Yeah.
We're also married. So now we're working together and we're married and we're a family, all of those things. We know that it's not always bright. I'm sure there's a lot of growth that takes place. So
Right.
Talk a little bit. I mean, you talked about the impetus for creating Uniquely Knitted, but just kind of getting it off the ground, and how has that been, and just doing it together too.
Well, I joke all the time that Uniquely Knitted is my third kid because we have 2 children. We were going to stay foster parents at the same time that we adopted our last child. And then we were going to go and do foster care again. And I was like, I either have to do Uniquely Knitted or we can adopt another child, or foster another child. Like I cannot do both.
And that's not even like, you're not even joking. That is like a real,
I'm not joking.
It was that level of commitment that was needed.
I said, I have to either jump into this, because also foster care, it's a whole nother podcast for another time, but is a lot. So, that I either can do that or I can do this. And I think I was like, probably not in the greatest space, and was like, Doug, you choose, spin the wheel. Like, do you want to do this or do you want to do that? And of course I wanted to do Uniquely Knitted too. Like it wasn't like something that I had to twist my arm too hard, but and I say that all to say that's how much effort I feel like it does take.
Totally.
It does take a lot of effort. You really have to know, I always say, who you are and who you aren't as a nonprofit. Like, what are you doing? What are you, what is your business? Like, and really knowing who you are and knowing what you aren't and what you don't want to do. Like we always get asked, do you want to give away IVF grants? It's like, no. We don't. We want to focus on the feelings. It's like, we know who we are and we know who we're not.
Yeah.
So I would say that it was really rocky in the beginning. Not really, just like not easy. Like
It's hard.
Not easy trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
We obviously are married. I think it's been really growing for our relationship.
Mhm.
I think one thing that I feel like Doug and I is something that we are constantly working on, or I would say like do well, is Doug always says like we leave our egos at the door. And that sounds so like cheesy, but it really
That's
is.
like the most needed thing ever. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like we really trust each other. And so if Doug doesn't like something that I'm presenting to the table and he says he doesn't like it, I can go, he's probably right. Like, I should and vice
But I
versa.
just want to be honest, 9 times out of 10, it's me coming up with an idea of like, what if we did this? And Jesse's like, no, our people don't want that. And I'm like,
yeah,
you're right.
yeah. Low integration over here. He's just like big dreams, small. That was deep route language. So I feel like we really trust each other and we can be really honest with each other. And I would say this, a trope that is like a married couple doing business together that I actually don't agree with is they say, never bring your business home. And I just don't think that's the case.
It was just impossible for us.
Yeah, I was like, how do you do that?
I feel like every business podcast I bring is like, don't bring it home. Don't bring it, like, just leave it at work. I'm like, I have talked about Uniquely Knitted at Disneyland at midnight, you know what I mean? Doug and I on vacation, like we talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
And of course,
Because it's part of who you are.
Because it's part of who we are. It's like there's no like massive parameters. And yes, sometimes do we need to be like, okay, let's shelf this and think about something else. And of course that can come with that. But I would say that we really trust each other.
Yeah.
And we're really honest with each other. And I feel like we're both pretty humble, or at least I try to be humble with your opinion. Wrong. No, I'm just kidding. But
I would say for me, starting Uniquely Knitted was like, so my bachelor's degree is in organizational leadership. So I was like, I got this. I just like run we'll start a nonprofit, no problem. But it's sort of, I like the analogy of sort of like, it was like we were going to go rock climbing, but I didn't really know how to rock climb, but we started rock climbing already, and you're like, you're like Googling rock climbing as you're halfway up. You're like, I don't know how to tie a knot. And you're trying to figure out how to tie a knot. And people will say like you're building the airplane as you fly it a little bit, which is totally true. And totally what we did. It was a massive effort to get the whole thing off the ground. I would say for us though, the key drivers was being relational with people. Anytime we had a problem, we tried to not think of how do you solve the problem? We thought, who knows how to solve the problem? And can we go buy them a cup of coffee and talk to them? We got to a point where like, we need money. So we have to fundraise, obviously nonprofit. We provide all of those mental health services, all those process groups for, essentially nothing.
Right. Fraction.
Yeah. A fraction of the cost. So we're like, I don't know how to fundraise. So let's call someone who knows how to fundraise and then get to know them and bring them in. And that's how we built a board. And that's how we built all these things is such a relational effort. That Uniquely Knitted really at the core of it is we want to bring people into relationship and help them grow in relationship. So we thought we got to build the nonprofit the exact same way, bring people in and grow through our relationships. Even now, like we've grown and we serve people around the world now and we have all these partners and it's great, but we are in the midst of like a massive growth spurt right now. And before even this conversation, I'm online thinking like, I don't know how to do what I want to do. So I need to think, okay, who should I call? What relationship can I lean on to be able to develop myself? And that's at the heart of what we did with Uniquely Knitted.
And I would say that Doug and I are extremely lucky to be very connected people.
Yeah.
I think that there's never been like, I remember the other day, someone walked up to me and they're like, do you have a balloon guy? And I was like, balloon guy? What do you mean balloon guy? And he was like, the guy that makes the balloon puppet things. And I was like, I have a balloon guy. I actually know someone that does that. Like also Doug and I, because we are very connected people, we're very, relational people. I also think that we're really lucky that we also are very connected as well. And
I was going to say, I don't know if that's luck though. I think just even in our conversation, we can tell you guys are very clearly passionate about what you do and just passionate about other people. Right. And that's how those connections come. It's so authentic with you two. We can just tell.
Oh, that's sweet.
I think it's actually a sneaky business tool that more people should use, which I will.
The connections, huh?
I will sing the praises of like what you all are doing at the Institute and stuff like that I think there's a lot of business people who are like, I'm perfect at business. But what I have found is the people who excel further and go the farthest and go the fastest are the ones who are incredibly connected and know how to make connections. I feel like it's this sneaky business tool that's undervalued, but in the real world, it's all about connections. It's all about who, people always say it's all about who you know. And I think that is true in some nefarious ways of like, well, I just have an uncle who gave me $1 bajillion or something. But I think in the real world, what it actually means is, can you form a relationship with someone? Can you share your heart with someone? And can you let someone in and show them your vision and be vulnerable with them? People want to work with people like that. People want to support people like that. So that to me is like the number one way we've grown it. We've stayed connected is be relational, be vulnerable, stay connected.
You all have talked about like this connection, right? And you have a lot, like a community. You've built this community, whether it's local here in Orange County or it's online. How did you create this? What's it do in your work? Why is this so important?
Good question. I think the way we built it is vulnerability. Honestly, I think that's at the heart of how we built community, was being really honest and being really vulnerable about
ourselves,
what we're doing, and just being as hard, as committed as we can be, just being ourselves. Like when we started a podcast, we just tried to be ourselves as much as we can. Every meeting I go to, just to be myself, and not try to transform into something that I'm not. And when we, even online, we've been able to grow online and have a big, big-ish, whatever that means, on Instagram and things like that these days, but have a social following. It really all just comes down to, our desire to be vulnerable and let people in. I think there's something about community that grows in vulnerability. And there's something about, especially online, and so much of what we do at Uniquely Needed is virtual. Mm-hmm. So people are coming to us online. They're joining our groups online. I think you can sense when someone is like putting something on or trying to do something that's not themselves. And we've sort of had this commitment to stay neurotically dedicated to just being our weird selves and being genuine, because people are drawn to that. So I think at the core of building the community is vulnerability, for sure.
Yes.
I agree. I approve. That message.
Yes. Well, and I am one of those who has joined your community on Instagram. And I have to say, when I was looking you up, you even have a little blue check mark. You guys have made it. Right?
We've got the blue check mark. I've wanted it forever. But if there's a sign, a symbol that you've made it, that is one of them.
In California, we've made it.
On your gravestone, I'm going to put a blue check mark.
No. What's the blue check mark?
It's like a verified account. So like,
look at that.
People try to steal our identity all the time, and they try to pretend to be us. And then, so Instagram gave us the blue check mark. But I think it's funny how fast things like social media change and how like communities online change so fast. And the only way to keep up with it is to just be vulnerable and keep showing up. Which is sort of, again, it's a relational thing. Like how if someone were to say like, how do you stay connected to your friends? I would say, be vulnerable and keep showing up, Same thing online, same thing with business, same thing in marriage. Like just be vulnerable and keep showing up.
Keep showing up.
Yeah. Keep showing up.
Yep. That's wonderful. Well, this episode is coming out. We're recording it a little bit ahead of time, but we are currently, when this episode comes out, in National Infertility Awareness Week.
Right.
And so we would love to hear from you guys. What is something that you wish people knew or considered with regards to infertility? We're thinking about our listeners out there who maybe themselves are going through it, or maybe they just know their friend or their family member is one of those 6 who might be struggling. What is something we can share with them?
That is a great question. I'm going to actually answer that in 2 parts. Number 1, the person that is struggling. So the person that is struggling with infertility, I would give you permission to interact with this week however you want it to be. So some people take this opportunity to share their story. Some people take this opportunity to repost stuff. They feel very passionate about advocating. Those advocators, they love to do that. So that's great. But also when you're struggling, you really want a baby. It's like you really want to grow your family. And so it's very tender. And so sometimes these weeks can almost not advertise, but just like talk about something that is very painful and very vulnerable for you. So if you want to act like this week doesn't exist and you wish that infertility didn't exist and that's how you want to interact with that week, that's okay. If you want to be the advocator, that's also okay. So that's what I would say to the person that is struggling. To the person that maybe has someone in their life that's struggling, or they're like, I have no one in my life, but they're out there, is just educate yourself. Educate yourself on what infertility feels like. We have one podcast episode that is actually not for someone struggling with infertility. I mean, all of our episodes, anybody could listen. We talk about guilt and it could be applied to all things of life, but we just talk about it through the lens of infertility. But this one episode particularly is Dear Friends and Family, I'm Struggling with Infertility. And it's for the infertility community to send to their family and friends. And basically what we do in that episode is just talk about what it feels like and like what's hurtful, what's helpful, what you can do, advice, all that kind of stuff. And so I think stuff like that, like if you want to post some solidarity because you know somebody that's struggling and they saw it, that probably would mean the world to that person, even if they didn't tell you, but that would mean the world to that person. And just like educate yourself honestly on what it feels like, to experience this. That's what I would say.
I would, again, stamp of approval. I agree. That's that's essentially what I would say. Yeah, I think before we went through infertility, we had no idea what fertility, infertility, what any of that was. I had no idea it was 1 in 6 people. I had no idea that the divorce rate is 3 times higher. The anxiety and depression rates are 80% higher. The isolation, the traumas, the pain doesn't go away when you get pregnant. These are sort of like lifetime pain points that come up over and over and over again. And infertility truly is life-changing. You know, for us, it changed our life. Not only did it change the trajectory of our life, we picked up wounds and pains that come up over and over and over and over again because of infertility. And that's true of 1 in 6 people, that they are experiencing something that's going to stay with them for a lifetime. And as a society, all of us kind of knowing, the Bible a little bit and the background of how long fertility struggles have been around. And even thousands of years ago, people crying out to God, like, please, like, God, take this away, make something, make this better for me. I think we are absolutely ready and primed, and it's high time for a different social position towards fertility struggles. You know, they're oftentimes taboo. Many times people will say like, oh, it's a women's issue, which is like, doesn't make any sense because they're not just a women's issue. Men and women.
That's actually one thing I was going to mention is I love hearing from both of you, but I have to say, Doug, like, at least in what I've read and known over the years, you are one of the first male voices I have heard kind of talk about some of this. And it does seem like when it is talked about, it's always strictly from a female perspective, perhaps because of the biological in the body, when males, they're grieving just as much, and walking through it. And I mean, talk about feeling isolated even more so, right? Because that's not coming up over beers probably at the bar.
No, not at all.
Watching the game. It's just not a thing. So,
and that's why I think I just want people to take a different stance. I like that, that idea of like, let's have a different position towards fertility struggles. If you are around a lot of 20 to 40-year-olds, chances are some of them are trying to get pregnant and you don't even know they're trying to get pregnant. Or they'll say something like, yeah, we're trying. You have no idea what that means. You have no idea how long that means. So having a more of an open stance that says, I actually know that infertility is really tough. If you ever need some support, like, let me know. I'm there for you, dude. Or like, I know of great resources. I have friends who do stuff, like a different position towards it. And I think National Infertility Awareness Week, just a great week to kind of tune into that.
Absolutely. Well, you've talked a lot about this kind of explosion, right? Uniquely Knitted. It started with the boxes and then like the groups. And I mean, well, first the baskets, right?
Yeah.
So you've been growing, but looking ahead, what are your goals for Uniquely Knitted in the upcoming years?
Good question.
Yeah, we have a very clear goal, which is to continue growing. And specifically, the way that we want to grow is that we are partnering with providers, professionals, I would say, who serve the infertility community already. So there is already a vast network of people who are providing fertility related services to people, they're all physical. So hospitals, clinics, people who are going through treatments, and that network already exists across the country. We want to attach mental health to every single one of those locations. So every fertility clinic, every doctor's office you go into, every acupuncturist, every even OBGYN, every primary care physician who talks about fertility related stuff should have some way to refer you to something like what we do. We're there, we're ready. So we have the resources. So we've been building right now out this network of clinics and hospitals and doctors. And we want to go as just far and wide as we possibly can, starting in Southern California, reaching hopefully Mars someday. So we're going, I just think it would be amazing that, if you go into a clinic, you can see, we give out these little tent cards and pins that say, we care about your mental health. I would hope that someone could get treatment and go, well, you care about my mental health, scan a code, find Uniquely Knitted. And within a couple weeks, be sitting with a group of people going, oh my gosh, this is ruining your life. That's ruining my life. Or maybe not so extreme. Is this really hard? Is this one of your biggest life challenges? Yeah. It's one of my biggest life challenges too. And to be able to find community over that. So that's the goal, is to spread the network across the country.
Well, I love that. And I know you're not in Mars yet, but soon. So tell our listeners, though, aside from going to another planet, where can they find you? Maybe your website, social media.
Yeah. It's super easy. So if you are on Instagram, you could look up Uniquely Knitted. If you want to listen to a podcast about it, or just kind of find our podcast, you could look up the Infertility Feelings podcast. Or if you just go on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and just put in infertility, you'll find us. I think we're like the top 1 or 2 or something. Our website is uniquelyknitted.org. Yeah. And that will lead you to us. Those are probably the best ways. We're also on TikTok, YouTube, all those kind of things. I think it's very helpful to even just, not advocating for people to follow us, but I'm just saying, if you were to just glance at what we're doing a little bit, it will, not only will you sort of understand and be cared for if you are struggling with infertility, you'll kind of get what people are going through. Because we talk so much about the emotional aspect of it. We're not necessarily in the nitty gritty about the logistics of fertility. It's more about, hey, this is what people feel. And if you know someone, or if you may have friends going through it, it's a good way to sort of tune in.
A great place to start is the podcast. That's what I would say. If you're like, follow us on Instagram and the podcast. The podcast is
we're a big fan of podcasts.
Yes, we happen to enjoy podcasts.
I love it.
Doug and Jesse, we have just had so many insights that I've gained today and about this world that you're doing in Uniquely Knitted. But we end all episodes with a takeaway tip for our listeners. So what is a tip that you would like everyone to walk away with today?
Okay, I know mine. If I can go.
Okay, you go first and I'll think of mine.
My tip really goes back into everything that what we were talking about. The thing that I would want to say, if you were wanting to take maybe one thing away from this conversation, or the things that I care about, it would be utilizing connection to grow, which seems obvious, but I just think I know a lot of times in my life or in I've seen in people's lives, I want to grow, I want to do something, I want to follow my passions, and I really feel strongly about something, and I'm just going to go do it. I have a passion, I have a vision, I'm going to go do it, but it's void of connection. Or it's missing that connection is so many times a missing link to having something move and grow, even in our own lives. Like maybe you're like, I've really got like doubling down into like my virtues of life, and I really feel strongly about this maybe book I just bought, and I'm reading the Bible more or something like that. And you're like, I have a mission, a vision, I'm going to live a certain way. But then if there's nobody involved, if there's no connection involved, it will never generate into a more meaningful life. I think connection is so often the missing piece of business, of growth, of fun, of meaning. And even just like the goodness and sweetness of like family and life is really making sure that the connection points are high. That's my tip I would walk away with.
Well said.
That's a good tip.
Jesse.
Yeah, that's a good tip. I think
beat that, Jesse. I want you guys to rank these tips after.
Yeah, rank.
Yeah, we'll rank them. We'll have we'll have our audience send it in. Yeah.
I think I would just my tip would be if you are we kind of end a lot of our podcasts this way is if you are feeling like depressed or anxious or unmotivated, whether that be just in life or in your business or you're trying to start something, I would just say reach out to someone and tell them how you feel. That's what would be my tip or advice, and just keep going. Keep moving. I read this book called Maggie Smith, and she was getting a divorce and she wrote poems to herself. And after the end of every poem, how she ended it was keep moving. And it's like, just keep moving, keep going. If you feel stagnant, it's like, it will be okay. Like it will be okay. If you are anxious or you're depressed or you're having all these feelings, it's okay to reach out to someone. You're not alone in those feelings, and just keep moving. That's
so
what
fair. Yours was like vulnerable and tender. We can't rank them anymore. You win.
Honestly, I actually
win.
think they were connected because you got to start with the connection, build the connection, and then reach out to that connection.
Yes.
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 See?
See what you
Wow.
do, Doug?
Wow, this is really all uniquely knitted.
Yeah.
Let me tell
It is all.
Okay, you win.
It is all uniquely knitted. Well, Doug and Jesse, we cannot thank you enough. Thank you for taking some time to meet with us here today and to just pour into us and our listeners. And this was just wonderful. We wish you the best of luck with your organization and all the work you continue to do. So thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. This is wonderful.
Thanks for being here.
If you enjoy the Townsend Institute podcast series, head to our website at cui.edu/Townsend to find out more about the certificates, bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees offered through Concordia University, Irvine. With programs in mental health counseling, executive coaching and consulting, and organizational leadership, we have a variety of faith-based programs dedicated to helping you fulfill your academic and professional goals, all the while furthering your competence, character, and connection. Again, that's cui.edu/Townsend.